In December 2022, Blizzard released the 22nd expansion for Hearthstone, March of the Lich King, and with it we got an 11th class for the game, Death Knight. But that means there were 21 expansions that don't have cards for Death Knight. Well, I'm here to fix that. I previously made Death Knight cards for the first 9 expansions, and in this video we'll be covering the cards I made from Rastakhan's Rumble to Descent of Dragons. In Rastakhan's Rumble, every class got a powerful lower spirit as one of their legendaries, and a team built around it. The lore I've made for Death Knight is Muasala the Unliving.
There be no escaping death.
Muasala is a 6-mana 5/4 undead with 1 unholy rune, and when you play him he will summon the Muasala's underworld location, and then let you choose an enemy minion to be pulled into the underworld, removing it from the game. The underworld has 3 durability and will summon a 2/2 escaped soul undead with each use, but when you use it for the 3rd time, it will instead summon the minion you pulled into the underworld on your side of the battlefield. Now it's probably also a good time to mention that these cards follow a certain rule set, as you can see here. Anyway, aside from Muasala, I decided that the main theme for Death Knight in this expansion would be Reborn, so I also made some cards based around the Reborn mechanic. In Rastakhan's Rumble, each class got a minion that had stealth for 1 turn called Spirits, and I've made this one for Death Knight. Spirit of the Unliving is a 4-mana 0/3 undead with stealth for 1 turn, and after you play a minion from your hand with the spirit on the battlefield, it will give the minion you played Reborn. I also made a payoff for this Reborn theme, Rastakhan the Summoner.
Crush all who oppose Muasala.
Rastakhan is a 5-mana 4/4 undead with 3 unholy runes. When you play Rastakhan, he will resummon all your minions that were reborn this game. That means any of your minions were reborn that died this game. And then Rastakhan will destroy them, leaving you with a bunch of minions with 1 health, but potentially also triggering a bunch of death rattles. After Rastakhan's Rumble came the Year of the Dragon, which told a story over the course of 3 expansions about the villainous League of Evil versus the heroic League of Explorers. The 9 classes at the time were separated into these 2 teams, and I think it only makes sense that Death Knight would join the Evil team. The League of Evil were led by 5 main villains that each class got as one of their legendaries in the first expansion of the year, Rise of Shadows. But they've grown desperate. They've reached out to the most villainous of villains to join them, the Headless Villain.
Soldiers arise, stand and fight! Bring victory at last to this fallen knight!
This villain, formerly known as the Headless Horseman, is one of the legendaries for Death Knight. He is a 9-mana 5/5 undead with a blood and unholy rune. This character famously speaks in rhymes, and this time is no different. The Headless Villain will resurrect your minions with death rattle. They each pick an enemy minion to battle. This means that the Headless Villain will resurrect your death rattle minions, and they will then each attack a random enemy minion. This effect might be a little similar to Rastakhan's, but keep in mind that with their different rune combinations you can't play them in the same deck. This card is supported by 3 other cards I've made for Death Knight in Rise of Shadows. I thought this was a great opportunity to introduce some more flavor, so each of these cards are also written in a rhyme. Like Sinister Squashling, which has a death rattle that will summon a death rattle minion that costs 3 or less. What will it be? Try and guess. And that's just a complicated way of saying the minion will be random. There's also Heed the Horseman, which will discover a death rattle minion to be your slave. It costs 4 less but will be sent to the grave. This means you'll discover any death rattle minion and it will have its cost reduced by 4, but it will be immediately destroyed when you summon it. Finally, there's Headless Hunting, which lets you choose a friendly minion for its death rattle to trigger. Destroy the enemy minion whose attack is bigger. So in other words, it will let you choose a friendly minion and trigger its death rattle and then destroy the enemy minion with the most attack. Rise of Shadows also introduced the Lackey mechanic for the Evil team. These were a bunch of 1-cost minions that you could generate with various cards. I've made this card for Death Knight that generates lackeys. The other legendary I made for Death Knight in Rise of Shadows is the Headless Villain's wife, Susanna Thompson.
Then let us rest, my love.
Susanna is a 6-mana 5/5 undead with 3 blood runes and taunt. Susanna will give your hero plus 5 health when played, but after 5 undead die while Susanna is in your hand, she will be upgraded. This upgraded version of Susanna has 10 health and will give your hero plus 10 health. And after another 5 undead die while she's in your hands, she will be upgraded once more with 15 health and will now give your hero plus 15 health. I made a couple cards with blood runes to support Susanna. The next expansion was Saviors of Uldum, where the League of Evil traveled to the desert of Uldum to awaken the Plague Lords, such as Sadma, the Plague Lord of Death.
The end awaits.
Sadma is an 8-mana 7/7 legendary minion with 3 unholy runes. So what's your favorite archetype for Death Knight? If you said Plagues, you're gonna enjoy this card. Sadma will shovel all 5 Uldum Plagues into your opponent's deck when played. The Uldum Plagues are stronger than the Plagues from Titans. They are Uldum Plague Murlocs. When your opponent draws this one, they will take 4 damage and your board will be filled with 1/1 Murlocs. Uldum Plague Madness. This one will deal 4 damage to your opponent and then force each of their minions to attack another of their minions. Uldum Plague Death. This one also deals 4 damage to your opponent and will then destroy a random one of their minions. Uldum Plague Wrath. When your opponent draws this one, they will take 8 damage. And finally, Uldum Plague Flames, which will deal 4 damage to your opponent and then destroy 2 random cards in their hand. I made this card to support Sadma. Saviors of Uldum also reintroduced the quest mechanic, with a new quest for each class that rewarded you with a new hero power when completed. I've made this new quest for Death Knight. Claim the power costs 1 mana like all quests, and to complete it you must gain 10 corpses. Then you'll be rewarded with the Bones of Ptah. This new hero power costs 2 mana and will spend 3 corpses to summon a 5/5 undead with Taunt. You might remember how Saviors of Uldum also had the Plague spells for the evil team. These were spells that affected both players. Well, if you paid attention earlier, you saw me mention that a mini set would be released alongside these cards, and I've actually already made that mini set. In it, I shared this Plague spell for Death Knight, Plague of Undeath. This 7-mana shadow spell with 2 unholy runes will destroy all minions, then resummon them and then destroy them again. Because I already made this spell, there won't be a new Plague spell in this video, but I did make this new card for Death Knight that generates lackeys. Now moving on to the last expansion of the video, Descent of Dragons. In this expansion, each of the evil classes got access to a powerful new hero card, Galakrond. I've of course also made a Galakrond for Death Knight, Galakrond the Risen.
Embrace the finality of it all!
Galakrond costs 7 mana and will give you 5 armor. You may have noticed that there were a lot of triple rune cards throughout the video. Well, they all lead to Galakrond. You see, Galakrond will have a different effect depending on what triple rune combination your deck has. This means he can only be used in decks with 3 of the same rune. If you play with 3 blood runes, Galakrond will steal 2 health from the enemy hero and add it to your hero's health. This effect will also increase your hero's maximum health, and you can even go above 30. But remember, Galakrond cards can be upgraded if you play cards that invoke him. If you've invoked twice, Galakrond will steal 4 health from the enemy hero instead, and invoke twice again and he will steal 8 health and equip you with a 5/2 weapon. If you play with 3 Frost runes, Galakrond will instead deal 2 damage to all enemies. Invoke twice and it will be 4 damage to all enemies, and invoke twice more and it will be 8 damage, and he will equip you with a 5/2 weapon. If you play with 3 Unholy runes instead, Galakrond will resurrect your highest cost undead minion. If you invoke twice, he will resurrect your 2 highest cost undead minions, and if you invoke 2 more times, he will resurrect your 4 highest cost undead and once more equip you with a 5/2 weapon. Galakrond's hero power is the same no matter your rune combination. Galakrond's Cruelty, as it's called, costs 2 mana and will discover a rune card of your deck's type. So if you're a triple blood deck, it will discover a blood card and so on. Remember that anytime you invoke Galakrond, his hero power will also trigger. I've made these 2 cards for Death Knight that invoke Galakrond, and this card that triggers a bonus if you've invoked twice. Keep in mind that when you invoke with Ritualistic Revenant, you won't get to discover a card if it's killed during the opponent's turn, and you'll just get a random card instead. I've made cards for both Blood and Unholy throughout the video, but Galakrond also works with Frost, so of course I also made some cards with Frost runes. The final card of this video is a legendary with 3 Frost runes, Shivermore. Shivermore is a 6-mana 6/5 undead dragon with Rush, and it has a battle cry that will freeze all enemy minions, but any minion you kill while frozen will be resummoned on your side of the battlefield. And since Shivermore has Rush and 6 attack, you can probably take down at least one minion. Keep in mind that you will only resummon the minions frozen from this freeze effect. Once they unfreeze, that's it. You won't resummon any you kill with future freeze effects. Well, that's it for the cards for this video. We will continue this in a future video with the cards starting from Ashes of Outland. Thanks for watching, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next part. Until then, see ya!